Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to share 5 powerful reasons why you don't need friends after 70 to feel complete. It's not about shutting out the world or sinking into loneliness. It's about discovering the freedom and joy that comes from trusting yourself. If you're ready for this journey, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and let's jump to reason number 1. Reason 1. You don't need validation from others. Let's start with a truth that hits home after 70. You no longer need anyone else to tell you who you are or what you're worth. In your younger years, friendships often doubled as a mirror, reflecting how others saw you, boosting your confidence, or sometimes pressuring you to fit in. Maybe you spent time proving yourself, being the funny one, the reliable one, the person everyone liked. Social validation was a big deal back then, whether it was impressing coworkers, keeping up with trends, or just making sure you weren't left out of the group. But here's the gift of being over 70. You've outgrown that need. You've lived enough life to know your value doesn't depend on a head count of friends. Think about someone like Harold, a 72-year-old who spent decades in a whirlwind of social connections. He was the guy always hosting dinners, networking at work, keeping a dozen buddies on speed dial. Those friendships weren't just fun, they were a status symbol, a way to feel relevant. But when he retired, the calls slowed down. People he'd known for years faded away. At first, Harold panicked. Should he chase them down, plan reunions, keep the old gang alive? Then it clicked. Why was he working so hard for relationships that only thrived when he was useful to them? He'd spent half his life proving he was enough, through jobs, favors, charm. Now, he didn't have to anymore. That's the magic of this age. You've built a legacy, raised kids, tackled hardships, learned lessons. You don't need a chorus of voices saying, "Good job," to feel good about yourself. Harold stopped chasing and started living. He dusted off an old guitar he hadn't touched in years, took slow walks to watch the sunrise, and savored coffee without rushing to meet anyone. No more bending over backwards for approval. No more small talk to fill the silence. He was free to just be. And he found that freedom wasn't lonely. It was empowering. Ask yourself, how much of your energy has gone into keeping friendships alive just to feel seen? After 70, you realize you don't need a crowd to validate you. You've got a lifetime of proof that you're enough, right inside you. Letting go of that need isn't a retreat, it's a victory. You're not here to impress anyone anymore. You're here to enjoy the person you've become. Reason 2. Peace outweighs social overload. Reason number 2. Peace starts to mean more than socializing ever could. When you were younger, being around people might have felt like the pulse of life. Laughter, chatter, packed weekends. It was thrilling, a sign you were in the game. But after 70, the scales tip. The buzz of constant company can start to feel like noise, draining instead of uplifting. You begin to crave something quieter, calmer, something that lets you breathe without the weight of social demands. Friendships, even the good ones, come with strings, calls to return, plans to keep, the effort of staying in the loop. At this stage, that can feel like more trouble than it's worth. Picture Margaret, a 75-year-old who used to live for her social circle. She'd host brunches, join book clubs, keep her phone buzzing with group chats. Her days were full, and for a while, that felt right. But as the years rolled on, she noticed something. Those gatherings weren't as fun anymore. Friends repeated the same tired stories. Some turned every chat into a complaint session, and others seemed stuck in petty dramas she'd outgrown. What once sparked joy now left her exhausted. One afternoon, after a particularly long lunch, filled with gossip she didn't care about, Margaret decided she'd had enough. She started saying no. First to one invite, then another, then most of them. What did she do instead? She leaned into peace. Margaret swapped crowded tables for quiet mornings with a book. She'd sit by her window, watching the world wake up, no one demanding her attention. She took long walks alone, noticing details, the rustle of leaves, the smell of rain, that she'd missed in the rush of company. She wasn't hiding from life, she was choosing a different kind. The time she'd spent juggling friendships became hers again, and she loved it. No more forced smiles, no more pretending to care about the neighbor's feud. She was at ease, and that ease felt better than any party ever had. Think about it. How often do you say yes to social stuff out of habit, even when you'd rather stay home? After 70, you've earned the right to pick peace over pressure. You don't need to fill your days with noise to feel alive. Sometimes the quiet is where the real living happens. If this resonates, drop a 2 in the comments. I'd love to know you're with me. Reason 3. Fewer friends, fewer letdowns. Here's reason number 3. Fewer friendships mean fewer disappointments. Life teaches you a tough lesson. Not every friend is a keeper. Over the decades, you've probably seen it. People who drift away when times get hard, pals who take more than they give, connections that fizzle when you need them most. By 70, you've got a front row seat to this truth, and it changes how you see things. Cutting back on friendships doesn't just lighten your load. It spares you the sting of unmet expectations. Take William, a 77-year-old who's been around the block. He used to pride himself on a wide net of friends, old schoolmates, work buddies, neighbors. He'd check in, plan outings, be the guy everyone could count on. But over time, he noticed a pattern. Some friends only called when they needed a favor. Others vanished when he hit a rough patch, like when he got sick and the get well texts never came. A few stuck around for years, then dropped off without a word. It hurt at first. William wondered what he'd done wrong, why he wasn't worth the effort. Then he saw it. He wasn't the problem. He'd just been holding on to one-sided ties. So, he let go. William stopped chasing people who didn't show up. He didn't waste energy on guilt trips or "we should catch up" promises that never happened. And you know what? Life got simpler. No more waiting for calls that wouldn't come. No more feeling let down when plans fell through. He turned that energy inward, fixing up his garden, cooking meals he loved, watching old movies without anyone's input. The fewer friends he kept, the fewer times he felt that familiar pang of disappointment. Here's the deal. Friendships come with hopes. Someone will check in, they'll care, they'll match your effort. When that doesn't happen, it stings. After 70, why sign up for that? You don't need a long list of names to feel whole. Quality beats quantity every time. Maybe you've got a family member, or one true pal who's enough. Or maybe it's just you, and that's plenty. Fewer letdowns mean more peace. How's that sound? Reason 4. Your time becomes too valuable to give away freely. When you were younger, time felt endless. Hours to burn with friends, days to fill with plans, years stretching ahead. But after 70, it's different. Every moment starts to glow with meaning, and you get pickier about how you spend it. Friendships can be great, but they take work. Calls to make, visits to plan, energy to invest. At this age, you've earned the right to ask, is this worth my time? Often, the answer's no, and that's okay. Consider Richard, an 81-year-old who used to be a social butterfly. Dinner parties, golf outings, long phone catch-ups. His schedule was packed. But as he got older, he felt a shift. Those hours spent socializing started to weigh on him. A 3-hour lunch with friends left him drained, not energized. He'd sit through small talk, weather, politics, someone's new car, and think, I could have been home reading right now. One day, He skipped a group event he wasn't excited about. Then another. Soon he was guarding his time like gold, only saying yes when it truly felt right. What did he do with those reclaimed hours? Richard rediscovered himself. He'd spend afternoons tinkering in his shed, building birdhouses he'd always wanted to try. He'd watch the sunset from his porch, no rush to be anywhere. He even started journaling, scribbling thoughts he hadn't had time to process in years. The less he gave to friendships that felt like duties, the more he had for what lit him up. He wasn't lonely, he was full, just in a quieter way. Time's your treasure now. You don't have to share it with people out of habit or guilt. After 70, every day's a gift. Why spend it on lukewarm coffee dates or chats that go nowhere? Ask yourself, does this friendship spark joy, or is it just another to-do? You've got the power to choose, and choosing yourself might just be the best call yet. Comment 4 below if you're feeling this one. Reason 5. You're your own best company. Finally, reason number 5. True companionship comes from within, and after 70, you're the best friend you'll ever have. Society drills it into us. Happiness means people, crowds, constant connection. Being alone? That's painted as sad, something to fix. But here's the secret you unlock later in life. Solitude isn't lonely, it's rich. By 70, you've spent decades figuring out who you are. You've got stories, wisdom, quirks no one else fully gets. Why lean on others when you've got yourself? Take Eleanor, a 76-year-old who used to think she needed friends to feel complete. She'd pack her days, coffee meetups, group walks, endless texting. It was her shield against feeling left out. But over time, it wore her down. She'd come home from hangouts feeling empty, like she'd performed instead of connected. One day, she skipped the plans and stayed in. She made tea, flipped through an old photo album, and let her mind wander. No one to impress, no script to follow, just her, and it felt good. Eleanor started treating herself like a friend. She'd cook her favorite meals, not worrying if anyone else liked them. She'd take solo drives to the coast, windows down, music up. She'd sit quietly, reflecting on her life, the wins, the losses, the in-betweens, without needing someone to nod along. The more time she spent alone, the more she liked the person she'd become. She wasn't isolated, she was whole. And when real connections popped up, a call from her daughter, a chat with a neighbor, they felt effortless, not forced. Here's the truth. You don't need friends to fill your days. You've got a lifetime of company right in your own skin. After 70, you know yourself better than anyone. Your tastes, your dreams, your quiet strengths. Why outsource happiness when it's already here? Try it. Spend a day with just you. No plans, no calls. See how it feels. You might find you're all the company you need, and that's a game changer. Drop a 5 in the comments if this hits home. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, embrace your independence and live your way.